Great, well guys, welcome to Falls Farm, my family farm. My name's Tom Warner, and what's the date today? 9 years, 5 months and 3 days ago, launched the greatest craft distillery in the UK to save the world from mediocre gin. So it's diversification of the family farm. It's great to have you guys here to talk about it today, and we've got you some fantastic drinks.
Can't wait to try it.
Which is, you've got our honeybee gin. I believe you've been in the beehives today.
So it was only fitting to try this one, so I'm very excited.
Absolutely. And you've got one of our non-alcoholic spirits, Pink Berry, nature's non-alcoholic spirit. So
I'm going to give this a whirl.
Yeah,
well,
should we give it a go? Cheers. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, cheers guys, enjoy.
Let's give it a go. Delicious. And we were talking just before that I do like gin, so it would take a lot for me to be like, oh gosh, but that's so nice.
Yeah.
And still quite, because I actually tasted, you know, when it's coming right out of the distiller,
yeah,
and it's like 90%, and I was like, oh my gosh, but that, you can see how it all just comes together, obviously later down the process, and adding the flavours in. So yeah, that's delicious.
I think considering this is non-alcoholic, it's really fruity. Like, I love it. Like, it's still, I'm not missing.
And that's the raspberries from the farm. You know, that's where that fruity note comes from, because everything we try and do here, where possible, we try and grow the ingredients. We can't grow everything that we need, but where we can, we try. And we definitely, everything is 100% natural. So it's really difficult.
Fresh.
Yeah.
Really fresh. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. So when you set out with this idea of a diversification, obviously lots of farmers are having to do something different.
Yeah.
Have been doing, probably, you know, it's not always been the case, but did you set out always to have this kind of sustainable element that we've talked about, you know, as we've been walking around the farm? Was that always a priority?
I think the first thing you've got to remember, we're a decade old now, and the business planning started 3 years before that. So it was really 2009 that the journey started. And this was, diversification of the family farm and not knowing what that was going to be. And I think people think you've got to have this brainwave of, well, that's exactly what I'm going to do. We had absolutely no idea. And it was the end of about 6 months of just thrashing through relentless business plans, fag packet feasibility studies on loads of different ideas. And this was the evolution of an idea to produce essential oils. The evolution of that was, you need a still to make the essential oils. What do you do with the still for the rest of the year? Make booze. And then that led into gin for various reasons. But no, in essence, at the start, we wanted to be, you know, farm-born British gins. That was really what it was about, and that was harnessing Mother Nature. Did we know that gave us a particularly environmental edge? We weren't really considering it at the time. We were just trying to make the best gin in the world. That was the mission at the start. And I suppose within that mission, it naturally lends itself to being environmentally friendly, because we're not using synthetics, we're not using chemicals, we're using Mother Nature where possible. And our first product, our Harrington dry gin, actually we bought in all of the ingredients for that one. And we were just trying to make the best London dry gin that you could. Over time, and really it's before we'd actually launched, my mum had come into the kitchen when we were developing the dry gin recipe, and she'd put fresh elderflower that summer 2012, in a bottle of gin that had already been distilled, not by us, it was one that she'd bought. And she'd put 2 teaspoons of sugar and a load of elderflower that summer, and she made this beautifully floral and slightly sweeter gin that we were just like, wow, that is such an amazing idea. And at the time, no one was doing that. So it's one of the things we gave the world from this farm is flavoured gin. You know, the fastest growing part of the gin market over the last few years has been flavoured gin.
Yeah.
Sadly, our competitors use flavourings and dyes and loads of funky stuff that we wouldn't touch. But that element of making a gin that was a different colour, had a slightly stronger flavour profile into a certain botanical, that started on this farm. It was my mum just coming into the kitchen. We were like, well, that's our second product. So we launched our elderflower gin 2013. And it wasn't until 2015 late, I was in this garden, it looked very different to how it looks right now. It was just a lawned and bordered garden. My mum passed away sadly 2014, so she'd been instrumental in carving us a niche within and changing gin globally, I like to say. My mum did, but I wasn't looking after a garden particularly well, and I was out here and realised that there were herbs all over it. And at the time we were using sloes from the hedgerows, we were using elderflower from the farm, the spring water. But it was this, I know it sounds simple now, but the big Noah's Ark Field of Dreams moment, build it and they will come, was in here thinking, I need to look after mum's garden better. Wow, she's got loads of herbs. Why don't I grow these for the business?
Amazing.
And that was it. So that was 2015. So I built this garden in 2016. Luckily, we just won the HSBC elevator pitch. So we won 150 grand investment from those guys with no strings, which was just phenomenal. It was like The Apprentice without idiots, basically, apart from me, the competition. And we won that just at a point where we probably would have gone bust, because we were starting to grow really quickly.
Yeah.
And actually, growing really quickly will kill you quicker than growing slowly, because you're owed loads of money and you've still got to keep manufacturing, and there's a vacuum in the middle where you've got no liquidity. So that hit just at the right time. And I built this garden as one of the things with the cash that we got, and that set us on the journey. And, you know, roll forward into 2017, we met Johnny, who you met earlier. We brought Johnny in as a beekeeper. He was meant to be part-time, but we obviously fell in love with each other. Johnny came in and starts working at the farm. My wife Tina, who runs the business with me, that you guys should have a chat to another time, she's the brains. I'm just a snake oil salesman. Tina had come up with the idea of the honey gin. We brought Johnny in. Very soon he's working full time for us. And I think we're still the only distillery that has a full-time conservation manager. You know, Johnny's conservation and sustainability, but he's been with us for, you know, since 2017. So that was really, you know, when we set that sail on conservation, sustainability, and treading lighter on the land and doing good, all started really with the growing of the botanicals as that catalyst really for change within the business.
So for your consumers, or if you're, you know, pitching to kind of actual, you know, big sellers,
Yeah.
does that idea that you're kind of using natural, you know, ingredients and flavors, and as you say, not making an impact on the land, that must sit really well with them when you go and say, we're unique on the whole because we're doing this? For
sure. I think it depends on who you talk to. I think the retailers are getting their heads around it now. They are becoming far more focused on being green. They've all got their ESG agenda. And I think it's a hot topic at a certain level of society. And we know we've got to do it, right? Consumers at shelf, is that translating into sales at the moment? Not as much as it should be. So, you know, the climate crisis and biodiversity crisis, which is actually a bigger issue than the climate crisis. We don't even talk about the biodiversity crisis at the moment to the consumer, because they don't understand. They don't even understand the climate crisis, how bad that is at the moment. So I think there is a disconnect still. I think there's a certain portion of consumers that will pay more. I think brands or accreditations like B Corp are making that slightly more consumable. You know, B Corp good. They don't understand what all the criteria are to get a B Corp, but they know it's good. Retailers are giving that secondary space. So I think there's still quite a journey we've got to go on, and we need to go on it quicker than we currently are. But if you're not doing it now and putting it at the centre of everything you're doing, you know, that's kind of greenwashing. And there's so much of that. You know, everyone's carbon neutral. Well, they're not. You know, just writing a check, I could be carbon neutral for 500 quid. It's ridiculous. You know, that's not cool in my book. So what we try and do is, you know, quantifiable reduction in our carbon footprint. We're trying to get into carbon farming, which Johnny's leading, in terms of composting and really causing a lot of carbon sequestration at the farm. Always a word I struggle with, that one. But yeah, so retailers, it's very important. Where it's setting us apart in quite a big way, you know, we are up against Diageo, Pernod Ricard, Beams. These are all multi-billion pound, you know, Diageo's a £100 billion valuation business. They've got thousands of people. They've got a marketing budget that is probably bigger than our entire turnover. You know, they write off more stock than we turn over in a year. So we're up against absolute giants there, but we are really authentic. So we can have conversations that they can't. They might do a 2-week marketing spree with some sort of environmental initiative. We do it every day, and that actually gets us to the table, we're finding, with a lot of retailers now. So it's becoming really powerful at the retailer discussion, and that's on trade and off trade. So that's shops or bars, pubs, restaurants. It's enabling us to carry a lot more weight than we should do, pro rata to our size. So it's really important to our business model, for sure.
I was
Sorry,
gonna
you
say, so we looked at the cattle there earlier. So your dad still looks after
Yeah.
after that side of the farm.
Yeah.
Do you get involved with the cattle at all?
When he needs me, I try not, because the thing is, this is relentless.
Yeah, of course.
What we're doing. So if he needs, he it's a finishing system that he does. So they come in the spring, they're stores, and then he fattens them off over the summer. So there might be a bit of tagging and worming to do at the start of the season, that kind of thing, or when all the passports arrive, help him out with that. But he does that mostly himself still.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think that makes farming, and obviously this is a diversification to the farm, but often it's very much a family affair.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why, one, it works so well, but two, you probably have the worst arguments you ever have, because you
God.
never speak to your employer like that.
There's no way
But-
you would. Yeah.
You'd be sat to me, and sometimes I even think the way I've spoken to my mum, I think, oh gosh, I wouldn't have spoken to, a
Yeah,
boss
yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
it's the reason it works, because you've got a real investment, personal investment. Yes, the money side is one of it, but a personal investment in wanting things to work.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, I think that's fantastic. But in terms of how this as a diversification works hand in hand with having still the kind of original
Yeah.
farm element, we were talking earlier about kind of like the cash flow thing, and obviously you've got different flavours of gins which hit
Yeah.
different times of year, so you can keep that quite constant and stable.
Yeah.
Whereas farming itself can be really, really up and down, not even just seasonally, but whatever the markets are doing.
Yeah.
So do they work really well hand in hand?
Well, they're two completely separate businesses. Number
Yeah.
one, so different P&Ls and cash flows going on. The gin it's a tricky one, I suppose. With agriculture, you've got the cash flow of, depending whether you're arable, you've got all your inputs, your seeds, etc. at the start of the year, and then you've got your harvest, and you've got the lag time in between. And it's the same with any growing operation, whereas we're manufacturing all the time, but there is seasonality within that. We just try and manage our buying of product, so the cost of goods, the bottles, the labels, etc., to sort of fit in with that flow of sale. So far this year, that's been quite difficult. I think we've got a big macroeconomic crisis going on at the moment, so the entire, I think, food, drink, everything, clothing, the whole shooting match is had a crap start to 2022, which is not what we wanted after 2 years of pandemic. But I do still think that will unwind. I think we're as a nation holding our breath a little bit at the moment. But we've seen it is the last 4 weeks it started to fizz. But yeah, cash flow is one of those things that it's very different to agriculture in this business. And each year it can change quite frustratingly. But it's, with any business, it's about managing that cash flow cycle as hard as you possibly can. So paying your suppliers within reason as late as possible, and buying stuff as late as possible, and then selling it and getting the cash in as quickly as possible. But it's totally different to managing like an agricultural cash flow situation, because you've just got that constant turnover.
Yeah. And if somebody watched this and thought, I'd like to start a diversification, it doesn't have to be gin or anything, what would you say to somebody who, as you say, managing this sort of business is completely different, a massive learning curve? So what would you say to somebody who thinks, I really want to do something different on the farm?
Jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
you cannot train to do this sort of stuff. We came into a booze industry. My experience was, young farmers and Harper Adams Agricultural College when I was there, which trained me how to drink huge amounts of alcohol. That was about it. So, we had no contacts, we had no cash. We came in, but I think timing is everything. So do your business planning. Like, I wouldn't be launching a gin distillery now based on what's happened, because, it's so many. When we launched, I think about 600 have launched since we've launched.
Yeah.
The party was 2018. If you weren't established then, it's going to be very difficult unless you are crazily funded. We did it on a shoestring. So I think pick where you're going, set your context for your business. What do you actually want to achieve?
Yeah.
Do you want to, I don't know, do you want to be the next Richard Branson, or do you want to sell locally and have a certain amount of income? What are your aspirations? Write your vision. Really important for anyone starting a business. Write your vision of where you want to be in 5 years' time, what you're driving, what you're wearing, how many employees have you got, what you're turning over. Set it out on a piece of paper, because what that does is it gives you it sets your mental aspiration, and shoot for the stars when you're doing it. And then work back from that point of, these are the things I need to do each year in between now and then to actually reach
get
that
there.
goal. But there's never a better time than right now to just get after it.
Yeah.
So, but remember, we spent 6 months thrashing through ideas before we sort of crystallized. We then spent 3 years, 2.5 years finessing that idea before launch.
Yeah.
So you've got to put in the time. But like anything's possible. I think we're crap in this country at encouraging people to go for it, especially like you guys, where you are, you got your thing going on now, but you're time millionaires. I think I was 31, 32 when I started. So, the younger you are, the more time you've got to cock it up and go again. Because in that process, we see failure as bad. Failure is learning.
Yeah.
Any successful business is thousands of failures and a couple of success points. Everyone focuses on the success points. They don't see all of the failures that go into it. So you learn so much when doing this. So my advice for anyone is get after it. And if it goes wrong, the amount you'll have learned, go again.
Yeah.
Completely,
Fantastic.
yeah. So if we had to go home with a bottle of gin today, what would you
what's your
recommend us?
flavour? What's your favourite flavour?
Favourite flavour? That's like asking you to pick, like, not that I've got any children yet, because the business has been the child. That's like picking your favourite child, I suppose. They're all awesome. I mean, this is the other thing. It's for different reasons, whether you like floral, fruity. We've got almost a gin for every night of the year. I think we're up to about 12.
Amazing.
So it depends on the time of year and the party you're at. But if you're a puritanical and you want just something light and lovely to drink, the London Dry is banging. I think in total now we're up to getting on for about 7 or 8 acres of planted botanicals on the farm. No one does that, and it's really masochistic. And that's the crux of the business, is we believe real tastes better. That's why we do everything. So it would be far easier just to buy it in. But we know the flavours we get are better from the stuff we grow on the farm. That's why we do it. So, I think if you're going to do something, do it right as well. That's another. So if you're going to take a gin home, London Dry, the rhubarb's the rock star. I mean, that transformed gin globally.
Yeah.
It's one of the only, it was the first rhubarb gin in the world. It's the one that, because it was so successful, every man and his dog now makes a rhubarb gin. Hardly any of them actually put rhubarb in it. So they're all, you can
And
taste.
we're sitting
Yeah.
right next to some rhubarb.
There you go. You can taste theirs, and it's like rhubarb sweets from the sweet shop. It's synthetic flavoured. So a third of every bottle of our rhubarb gin is rhubarb juice. Really important ingredient. And it was the first pink gin at scale in the UK. So everyone went mad for pink gin. I will tell them, I won't swear, but pink is not a colour. Sorry, pink is not a flavour. Do you know what I mean? When I hear people at a bar going, "Can I have a pink gin, please?" It's just like, oh, Christ, how low have we sunk right now? We're shopping by colour profile for taste, which is just mental. So first pink gin is why all the pink gin erupted, but it's a rhubarb gin and it's pink because it's got rhubarb in it.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe some rhubarb gin then.
Definitely. I was going to say, should we ask our final question that we ask all of our guests and explain kind of decisions as to why?
We'll go for that.
So we represent Boots and Heels. So Becca being Boots because she's a farmer out and about.
Yeah.
Heels because I'm still in agriculture, but I work for Farmers Weekly and in the office. So would you say you're more Boots or Heels, as in Boots you like to be out and about on the farm as such, or Heels you like to be more kind of the business side in the office?
I think I've got one of each on.
Oh,
You can't.
Nobody.
You can't.
Sometimes we just need a straight answer.
You
You
can't,
know,
you've got
Boots
boots
or
or
Has that been
heels.
said a lot?
Yeah.
Well, then I'd be
We've even had
Boots.
team trainers. Oh yes.
Then I'd be Boots. I would be Boots because that's the magic part of the business. And within the Boots at here, it's the operational side.
Yeah.
It's actually making the stuff and growing it. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Well,
Good
thank
shout.
you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a look around the farm.